Chairman Grassley, you're right. What you said is true. Under Chairman Graham, we tried to avoid meeting if it wasn't absolutely necessary, and we did that on a bipartisan basis. And I think I speak for the Democratic side. We hope to return to that model. This is an extraordinary nomination, the Kash Patel nomination, that leads us to want to meet today to spend a moment. We sent a letter. We received similar letters from the Republicans in the past asking for another hearing on Mr. Patel. And the obvious response from the Republican side is we've already had our hearing. We're not going to have another one. I'm disappointed, not surprised, but disappointed because I think there are several things that we have to acknowledge. Number one, this is an unusual nomination. Unusual, and it's a 10-year nomination. I mean, we decided 50 years ago to reform the selection of the FBI head to make sure that we took politics out of the equation. And so we said 10 years, that's going to transcend at least one president, maybe two, the service of an individual. So 10 years is a pretty long time, and it, I think, merits extra consideration and review. Secondly, the hearing of this individual raised questions that I'm sure a lot of people were surprised about. Why did we spend so darn much time talking about a musical recording, the J6 choir? We did because Mr. Patel basically denied any knowledge of the creation of this musical enterprise and the people who were involved in it. He was very proud of the musical selection, which he was playing at rallies for President Trump, and he was very much involved in calling these folks political prisoners who had stormed the Capitol on January 6th. And yet when we asked him about him, he denied that he had any real knowledge of who was involved and what they were doing here. I look at, I'm trying to find one quote. He was on Steve Bannon's show. Mr. Patel claimed he didn't have anything to do with the January 6th prison choir, which includes January 6th rioters who violently assaulted police officers. Here's what he said to Steve Bannon, quote, "We got this idea to record the January 6th prisoners who recite the national anthem every night from the D.C. prison. Then we took that to the studio, so we mastered and digitized it." I mean, that's a direct contradiction under oath of his involvement. What difference does it make? A recording, come on, Durbin, move on. The recording was of political prisoners who stormed this Capitol and assaulted 140 of our best and brightest and most well-trained people that guard us every single day, the Capitol Police and their D.C. counterparts. They are trying to, some people are trying to lionize the insidious effort by these thugs who came and stormed the Capitol and were screaming out, "Hang Vice President Pence." I hope that we don't fall into this trap of trying to rewrite history as to what happened on January 6th. That was an atrocious display of political might, and at the expense of some wonderful people who guard us every single day in this Capitol. There are some here who wouldn't, and when we went through this hearing, they disparaged the very thought that these people would be pardoned if they were guilty of violence against the police. One of my colleagues here called it absurd and hypothetical. Well, it turned out to not be so absurd. On the first day he was president, and the second term, Donald Trump issued a blanket pardon for all those who had been arrested. Mr. Patel was part of this lionization of these thugs who took over the Capitol or tried to take it over on that day. I don't want history to be wrong or misleading about what actually happened. Now what's happening? Questionnaires are going out in the Department of Justice and the FBI as to whether individuals serving our country in those agencies were involved in January 6th prosecutions. Yesterday, I met an individual who wants to be the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche. Made a good impression. Some of you probably met him too. He appears to be a well-versed, well-trained attorney. He was personal attorney to President Trump in one of his lawsuits. Back in the day, he was working for the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York. And I asked him, when you started working there, did they let you pick and choose the files you worked on? He said, of course not. You were assigned, particularly if you're low in seniority, you were assigned cases. So I said, to say that a person worked on a January 6th case, if they are new to the agency, is it possible that they were ordered to do that case? He said, it's possible. I said, should that be held against him? He didn't think it should, nor does anyone else, I hope. They did the job they were assigned to do. And now we have this kind of survey of the Department of Justice and the FBI to determine who was involved in the January 6th prosecutions. If this is an effort to punish them, dismiss them, or treat them poorly because they did what they were supposed to do as professionals, that's wrong. And I look at the involvement of Kash Patel in this whole episode from start to finish. I read his book start to finish, and I can tell you he does not have the temperament for the job. And if you're honest about it, you'll join me in thinking that. He is always trying to go after those who disrespected him and wronged him politically and get even with them. For God's sake, to give the most sweeping investigative agency in the United States and the world over to this man to settle political scores is something we're going to regret. That's why we asked for a second hearing on this. I hope that we don't have to do it again, and I hope that some members on the Republican side will think twice on this issue.